All right, welcome to Touchdown Talks. It's been a minute since I've done this style of video, but this is going to be my Super Bowl preview video. Also going to have a shorts version here tomorrow, but wanted to give you more of a longer form video, so if you're more interested in a little bit more detail, watch this video. If you want just the short, condensed version, I'll have that out for you on game day tomorrow. Let's get into Super Bowl 60. So, of course, we do have the New England Patriots hosting. They will be the home game. The AFC is the home side this year. So, the New England Patriots versus the Seattle Seahawks. This is in Santa Clara at Levi Stadium, home of the 49ers. So, a bit rough for 49ers fans. You got to watch the Seahawks playing the Super Bowl at your home stadium. But for the line for this game, currently, and really pretty much this whole week, most of the couple weeks leading up to this game, the line has pretty much stayed pretty solid. It is at 4.5. That's what it will be at kickoff. I don't anticipate it moving at all. It started out 2 weeks ago, started a little bit with a little bit of movement, going from a 3.5 up all the way up to 5, and then kind of settling down at 4.5. So it did start at a little bit more of an even number, and then got bet up in favor of the Seahawks a little bit more. Again, got bet up to 5, and then got brought back down to 4.5, and that is where the line has stayed, 4.5. So Seahawks favored by a decent amount for the Super Bowl, but I anticipate this game will be pretty interesting. And of course, I've had basically 2 weeks to mull over what I wanted my prediction and bets to be for this game. Of course, again, it's tough to not overanalyze with the Super Bowl because we have just so much time to make our picks and to imagine what we think is going to happen in this game. And so it's hard to not, it's fun to analyze these teams and look super in depth into things. But at the same time, though, sometimes you can have paralysis by analysis. There's a reason we play the games. No one knows exactly what's going to happen, of course. So, of course, I'm ready for the Super Bowl as well. You can see I've got my Super Bowl trophy back here behind me. But so for the Super Bowl and who I think is going to be taking home the Lombardi trophy, I am taking the Seahawks. So as I mentioned, the Seahawks are favored 4.5. The over-under is currently sitting at 45.5. So I've got the Seahawks winning by a score of 23-20. So I'm actually not taking the Seahawks against the spread. I'm not taking the Seahawks to cover. I've got the Seahawks winning by a field goal, but I'm not taking them to win it or to cover the spread. I think 4.5 is just a little bit too much for me. Now, I will say, having followed and paid attention to betting numbers for just general public, and then also listening to pundits on different networks, different ESPN, Fox, all the networks associated with the NFL, listening to all the experts, listening to all the top bettors out there, listening to just general consensus. What we are pretty much set up for is we have the general public is on the side of the Seahawks. Most bets are coming in on the Seahawks. And then the bigger bets, the sharp bets, a lot of them are actually starting to line up on the Patriots side. So this is kind of pretty typical. They call it the pros versus the Joes. So the pros are on the Patriots, the Joes are on the Seahawks. That often happens. The pros will often end up on the opposite of what the public is thinking. But in recent history and including in the playoffs, being on the pros side hasn't necessarily always been the right side to be on. So now, over the long game, totality of betting history, yes, being on the pros side is, of course, the winning side. But so yeah, most of the pros are coming up on the side of the Patriots, covering the spread at the very least. But general public and even experts on any network, a lot of analysts and things siding with the Seahawks here, winning and quite possibly winning by a touchdown. So I'm not that confident in that. I've got the Seahawks winning 23-20 in all my analysis for this game. The two score predictions that I landed on was either 23-20 or 23-17. So I could see the Seahawks covering the spread. I do want to put that out there. As far as bets that I have on the spread, my biggest bets are actually alt line bets. So I've taken the line down a little bit, lost a little bit of juice, so I'm not going to get as much in return if these bets come out, but I'm more confident in them. So I've got the Seahawks minus 2.5. That's one of my bigger bets right now. I do have the Seahawks minus 4.5, but that's a small bet because I'm not super confident in it. Again, I could see this Seahawks team winning anywhere from about 6 to 3, most likely closer to the 3 in my opinion. Now, of course, I could see the Patriots winning this, but I feel like the most fun thing with the Super Bowl especially is you don't want to necessarily just be, hedge betting and, pick a side, pick a script for the game, and from that script come up with fun bets that can work out. Now, you can bet things on both sides that aren't necessarily hedge bets, but can sort of have the same effect. So I've got some of that in here. But as far as the overall game line, I do have the Seahawks winning, but not covering that 4.5 necessarily. I did take a small bit on the 4.5, but my main bet for the spread is Seahawks minus 2.5 instead. And then for the over-under, of course, that was at 45.5. I'm taking the under there. I see a bit of a lower scoring game. Now, in some of the more recent Super Bowls that we've had in the last decade or so, we have had some pretty high scoring games. We've had some pretty consistently in recent years. We've had both teams get into like the 30s with the total score at least passing 60. So this over-under is a bit lower, and I'm taking the under even on that. But part of the thing for me is if you look at that recent history for the Super Bowl, a lot of those games involve the Chiefs and or the Patriots. Now, of course, the Patriots are here, but most of those games that are that high scoring were ones that involved that involved the Chiefs. And not only that, they were Super Bowls that involved either Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady. So the Super Bowls outside of those, which we've had very few of those this past decade, but then even going to the last 20 years and beyond, the Super Bowl is generally a bit of a lower scoring game than what we've seen in recent years. And again, I think having the Chiefs, the Eagles, some of those teams in it in recent years, that's bumped up the total number in some of these past Super Bowls. So this year I do expect, with the two teams we've got in here, I think this is going to be a lower scoring game. We've got two of the best defenses in the league in this Super Bowl. Really you could argue both of these two teams are top 3, top 4, and then, the exact ranking kind of up for debate. Now for the postseason, as far as points allowed per game, Patriots are first, Seahawks are third. As far as yards allowed per game, Patriots are first. Seahawks do fall down quite a bit. They've been about average in the playoffs, allowing quite a few yards. However, if you take out their game against the Rams, the Seahawks are much higher. That is one thing with the Seahawks is even when you look at their stats just as a whole, including the regular season, The thing with the Seahawks is they've been dominant. Outside of, if you take out their games against the Rams, they've been the best defense in the league. Scoring-wise and yard-wise, they are number 1 or 2. They're top 2 or 3 in basically every metric, especially if you take out their games against the Rams, which, again, I get it. That's taking it out. You can't. Those games do count. Those matter. But my argument with those games is that the Rams had one of, if not the best offense in the league, and that's a division rivalry between the Seahawks and the Rams. So anytime there's division matchups and you notice that those games those game scripts end up looking a lot different than the rest of the season for a team, kind of take those rivalry games with a bit of a grain of salt, because teams just, especially against certain division rivals, teams just play super different and just react to those opponents differently. So, so for the Seahawks, great defense. And then for the Patriots, statistically, both in the postseason and in the regular season, arguably better. Now, the biggest problem for the Seahawks, and one of the reasons why especially the public are on the Seahawks, and why it's a little bit hard to be super confident in the Patriots if you are on that side, is that the Patriots have a very weak strength of schedule. They're coming into this Super Bowl with, I believe, like a top 2 easiest schedule this season. And so we've seen teams in the past. We have seen teams get to the Super Bowl that have had easy strength of schedules and strength of victory. And some of those teams have won, but some of those teams that did, the teams that did win that were teams that we thought were some of the best ever. So I don't know about, I mean, we are in the Super Bowl, so these teams are both the winner and the loser. They are up there for sure, but I'm just not sure that I'm that confident that this Patriots team is going to get it done in the end. I think they have a chance to keep it closer, but one bit of advice I've heard from popular top sports bettor is that, if anything, for either side, one thing you can do if you really want to bet good juice bets that are going to have good returns, whichever side you think is going to win, take an alt line of 4.5, 5, maybe even 6.5, because we have seen in recent years, especially, we have seen that whatever team wins, regardless of if it's the underdog or the favorite, oftentimes the ending score ends up being won by close to a touchdown. So even though I'm taking this as more of it is going to be a close game, it is possible that it ends up being a little bit more of a gap between whoever wins and loses. But again, the script that I'm going with, that I see happening, is the Seahawks winning, again, either by 23-20 or 23-17. I'm sticking with the 23-20 just because I do see a chance for this Patriots team to win it, to get an upset, or at least keep it close. Again, these are two very good defenses with offenses that have been potent at times, but for the Patriots, it's easy to discredit that, being that they've played against a lot of really weak defenses, a lot of really weak offenses as well there in the AFC. And then for the Seahawks, they've got a really good defense, but has been leaky at times. But again, for the most part, though, that's been against the Seahawks, or that's been against the Rams, where they've looked leaky. Outside of that, even against a team like the 49ers, Seahawks defense has played pretty well. So, and that is a division rivalry game. And that one, the Seahawks defense has managed to stay looking a little bit more like what they have the rest of the season against everybody else. So I want to share with you some of my favorite bets for the game. Some of these are going to be on stuff actually happening on the field. Some of this, because we're in the Super Bowl, of course, if you want to just have fun making predictions and bets on just silly things, the Super Bowl is the game to do that. This is the time where all the sports books and things offer silly bets that are not available anytime else during the year. So getting into the serious ones, again, as I shared already, I am taking the Seahawks to win. I'm taking an alternate spread of 2.5. I do have the Seahawks covering that. And then I have both quarterbacks throwing at least one interception. That's another aspect of this game is for either team that wins, it feels quite possible that whichever team wins, the other team's quarterback is going to have made at least a few mistakes. And it's quite possible that both of these two quarterbacks at least throw an interception, maybe have a fumble. Drake May, for example, also another factor for the Patriots is Drake May is a very young quarterback, one of the youngest quarterbacks to make a Super Bowl. And in history, only a couple other times that's happened. One was Big Ben back in 2005, and there have been a couple others. But in those games, those young quarterbacks have not done well statistically. Now, a couple of them, they did actually win. Their team did go on to win, but it was pretty much in spite of that quarterback. So I would not be shocked to see Drake May struggle here a bit. He had a great regular season. Only didn't get the MVP for the regular season, but only missed that by one vote. Lost that race to Matt Stafford. Pretty impressive regular season performance by Drake May. But if you look at his performance since the playoffs have begun, and even before that, if you go the first 2 months or so of the season, Drake May's stats, amazing. Once you get into middle of November, basically Thanksgiving on, Drake May's stats have slowly come downhill, and especially here in the playoffs, his game-to-game stats have not looked quite as good. He's had, and especially here in the playoffs, he's had multiple fumbles, he's had some interceptions. His touchdown numbers have come down a little bit on average per game. Coming into this, during the regular season, Drake May was averaging about two to three touchdowns a game. Now in the postseason, he's only got about one per game, a little under two on average, and then he's thrown one interception in 2 of the 3 playoff games for the Patriots, and he's had many fumbles, as I mentioned. Also, of course, for both teams, the Patriots, they've got some concerns on the offensive line. They've got some spots, including Will Campbell, who very young offensive lineman. So I do expect the Seahawks to challenge them and to see if Will Campbell can prove that he can hold up against extra pressure. But all 3 games so far in the playoffs, Drake May has been sacked 5 times. So I do expect the Seahawks to get to Drake May a few times, and with that, you're going to have some extra pressures, and there's going to be a possibility for not only interceptions but for fumbles, which is something that Drake May has struggled with. Now, on the other side for Sam Darnold, he's actually looked pretty good. And I have to say, as somebody who has been a Sam Darnold doubter in the past, I felt like last year I was proven correct. We had Sam Darnold play really well during the regular season, and then he kind of felt like he went pumpkin mode in the final 2 meaningful games for the Vikings. And obviously that was part of why the Vikings let him walk. Obviously they're regretting that now, which has led to them firing the GM and things like that. But Sam Darnold, with that, has this season proven any doubters that he had wrong. He's played really well. During the regular season, 25 touchdowns to 14 interceptions. And then in the playoffs, he's thrown 4 touchdowns in 2 games, no interceptions. He's been sacked about 2 times. He was sacked twice against the 49ers and 3 times against the Rams, but less sacks than Drake May has taken in the playoffs per game for sure. And then also, he's had a bit better of a quarterback rating as well. For the playoffs, Drake May's quarterback rating is at 84, and Sam Darnold's is at 122.4. And even if we take the adjusted quarterback ratings that ESPN does, Sam Darnold has a rating of 78, while Drake May has had a rating of 51. So, again, young quarterback. Now the Patriots can win even if even if Drake May struggles. The Patriots could still win, but I think they're going to need either team. Obviously, the preferable is going to be the opposite. But with that, I think it's possible that for either team, we very well may see a defensive touchdown in this game or a special teams touchdown. That is a possibility as well. So getting into some more of my bets, again, I have an interception for both quarterbacks. I do think both are going to throw an interception. Either way, if even just one of them throws one, I'll be okay there as far as those bets. Drake May rush yards. I've got the over. His line for rush yards is currently at 37.5. The script that I'm imagining for this game is I can see the Seahawks getting out to a bit of a lead, which is going to put pressure on the Patriots, not only to throw more, but also the Patriots just in general this season have not had the greatest running game, and the Seahawks are pretty good against the run. So I do see for the Patriots, I imagine they're going to need to pass the ball quite a bit, and that is going to put Drake May not only in situations of having a high amount of pass attempts, but I think there are going to be some situations, especially late in the game, where we're going to see the Patriots go to pass plays, coverage hold up for the Seahawks, and then Drake May, who is able to run, he does have an ability for that. I do expect him to take off. So far this season, or in the playoffs, 2 out of the 3 games he had 10 carries and got over 60 yards. So against the Texans, he only had 4 rush attempts for 10 yards, but I expect him to have a few more rush attempts and a few more yards than that. That Houston game was really weird, really low scoring. I don't expect it to be quite that type of script here. So I do expect Drake May possibly in some desperation moments, to run, get a first down, scramble, that kind of thing. So I do have the over on 37.5 rush yards for Drake May. And then let's see here. Going into some of my other player prop bets, I have a few for Kenneth Walker. So for Kenneth Walker, I've got his over on his receptions and reception yards. So I'm taking the over on 2.5 receptions, and with that, the over on 22.5 reception yards. And then I've also got a small taste on an alternate reception yard line for him at 29.5. Because he's been hitting at least 30 pretty consistently recently. On the other side for the Patriots, I do have I'm taking the over on reception yards for Hunter Henry at over 39.5. And then for both quarterbacks, I've got some passing. Some other passing props that I've taken. So I've got Sam Darnold under 23. 231.5 passing yards. For Drake May, I'm also taking the under on his passing yards at 220.5. That one's one that I'm not super confident in. Again, I think that there is a chance that the Drake May and the Patriots get into a situation where they need to get into catch-up mode, which could end up inflating his passing numbers towards the end. And then Sam Darnold, his pass attempts. His pass attempts are at 29.5. I'm taking the under there. I do expect the Seahawks to have a little bit more of success running the ball and also just attempting it. And assuming they have the lead, like I'm expecting, that will only encourage rushing even more. So I'm taking the under on pass attempts for Sam Darnold. He's in the playoffs. He only had 17 pass attempts against the Niners. Against the Rams, he had 36. But then in the regular season, quite consistently, mid to high 20s or low 30s for pass attempts. So he'll be right around there. But I expect in this one, Sam Darnold's going to be on the under there for pass attempts. Some fun little parlays. Again, being that I do think the Seahawks are at least going to win, one parlay I do have is the Seahawks to win and Jackson Smith and Jigba to score a touchdown. So that'll be a fun little parlay there. I do also have those interceptions. I have those as separate bets, and then I do also have a parlay of those together for them both to happen. I've also got a little bit of a hedge bet for if the Patriots do win. I do have, if the Patriots win, I've also got Drake May throwing over 1.5 touchdowns. And then alongside the Seahawks winning, I have an alternate of the Seahawks money line, and I have the under on 50.5. So, a little bit more room for some scoring, but with the Seahawks winning, I do think this is going to be a bit of a lower scoring game. And honestly, regardless, I kind of see this as a bit of a lower scoring game. And now let's get into, as I wrap up this video, let's get into some of my more exotic off the field type of bets. So first of all, I have the team that wins the coin toss will lose the game. So whichever team wins the coin toss, I am predicting will lose. That one has oddly hit at a decent rate in recent years. So, oftentimes we see the team that wins the coin toss. They're going to elect to defer and have the ball second, get the ball in the second half. And in recent Super Bowl history, it's turned out to be that team has actually lost. So that's one of the more exotic prop bets I've got out there. I've got one on any quarterback to record a reception. I've also got a bet for over 2.5 players to make a pass attempt. So that one's pretty fun. Basically, all you need is either the bad version of this is one of the two quarterbacks gets hurt, and we have a backup quarterback coming in, or you could just have a trick play where a running back throws it, something like that. So there's another fun little prop bet. And then I have the other two that are probably the most fun and that I have the biggest amount on are the national anthem. I'm taking the under on 119.5 seconds. The national anthem this year is going to be sung by Charlie Puth. Unlike previous seasons, the last 2 or 3 years when we've had the Super Bowl, the artist that was selected to sing the national anthem had a record of singing the national anthem at previous athletic events. So it was possible to go online and do some research to see how long they had taken to sing it in those events. So in past years, I've used that to my advantage. Unfortunately, if you want to bet the national anthem length this year, Charlie Puth has not sung the national anthem at any sporting event. So there's not really much out there as far as a history of him singing it and what that will look like. I do think Charlie Puth is a very talented singer, so I'm interested to see how the national anthem sounds with him singing, and I'm sure it'll sound great. Now, as far as length goes and how the pace of it, not 100% sure, but I expect it'll be a little bit quicker. In recent years, we've had a lot of national anthems that have gotten closer to the 2-minute mark, but historically, a lot of national anthems have actually been quite a bit lower than that, closer to 1.5 minutes. So I'm expecting it to be closer to that. But again, the line is at 1:19.5, which is just under that 2 minutes, and I'm taking the under here. And then my final special exotic bet is you can bet on what the announcers will say. So, of course, one of them that's going viral right now is people are betting on whether or not the announcers will mention Mahomes, which, of course, is relevant, being that we have NBC covering this game and Chris Collinsworth is involved. So, and Chris Collinsworth was asked this week about that. People said, hey, did you realize there's bets on whether or not you are going to say Mahomes' name during the game? And he kind of chuckled and said, oh, well, now that you put that in my mind, I might end up saying it. Which my reaction to that was, okay, Chris, you would have said it anyways. But yeah, so I'm not taking a bet on him to say Mahomes because the juice on that one was not to my liking. I think the odds on that one were like minus 600 or something like that. So you weren't going to get much of a return on that. It's pretty much expected he's going to say Mahomes there. The word that I found that I think has better juice, but also is pretty likely to be mentioned is the word schedule. If either of the announcers says the word schedule during the broadcast, that bet will hit. So that's actually one of my bigger bets of the Super Bowl, is for one of the broadcasters to say schedule. They only have to say it once during the broadcast. And part of the reason I'm so confident in that being said is, as I mentioned before, the Patriots are coming into this game ranking in near the bottom in strength of schedule and strength of victory this season. So that's been a huge talking point, really this entire playoffs, but especially this past couple weeks. That's been a huge talking point, is the difference in strength of schedule and also the history behind Super Bowl teams that had very low strength of schedules. So because of that, I would not be surprised if at some point during the game we hear Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth have a discussion of, hey, this Patriots team, they came in here, very, very underestimated. Everybody's talking about how easy their schedule was, blah, blah, blah. That's kind of the conversation I imagine is going to happen at some point during the game, possibly even towards the pregame, of talking about, hey, yeah, we've got these two teams. You got the Seahawks, who are huge favorites here, and the Patriots, they're the underdog. Nobody expects them to be able to handle this game because they've had such a weak schedule coming into this. Everyone feels like the Seahawks are better. That kind of a conversation is something that I'm very much expecting to happen. And even if it doesn't, it's quite possible the word schedule is mentioned with two teams who are finishing out the 2025 season and the 2026 playoffs here with Super Bowl 60. So I hope you've enjoyed. If you made it this far, don't forget to hit subscribe. Let me know your Super Bowl predictions down below, and I will see you in my videos. Well, my shorts predictions video coming out tomorrow, and then my reaction after the Super Bowl. Hope you'll enjoy your own watch parties wherever you're watching it. Stay safe, and I will see you in those next videos.